Hello and welcome to another edition of 310 to Left. It is Alex Speier from the Boston Globe with me, Tom Caron from Nesson, which is nothing unusual. But maybe we stop saying that completely at the start of the show. I think people have figured that part out. Nonetheless, here we are with a special edition. I will call this a special edition, Alex, because we have what I think is one of the coolest guests that we've landed on the podcast yet, Eddy Alvarez, who is a Red Sox infielder playing for the WooSox, and he is in a rare class of athlete who has competed in both the Winter and Summer Olympics, medaled in both. It's a short track speed skater and a baseball player. Really just a remarkable guy, and a great way to talk about the Olympics, which is what everybody's talking about, Alex.
It's so cool to be able to connect with Eddy about this moment, right? Like this moment in time that like we all are kind of gripped by, right? Like it's something that's just immediately compelling, and to have someone with the experiences that he does across multiple sports, across multiple Olympics, is truly amazing. And I just also want to give the sense that like this is a special athlete. You say that he's an infielder, which is true, but the other day I was in Worcester. I'm watching him play. He goes tracking balls down to the track in right center field, like it's nothing, like he's on skates, if you will. He moves so there's a degree of bodily coordination of athletic intuition that exists for him that's truly special. And you understand, well, if you lock in on him during a game, you kind of understand how this is someone who was able to be an Olympian in both short track skating and in baseball. And just it's cool to appreciate someone who's been at those two pinnacles.
Are you a fan of the Olympics? Have you been watching many of these games from Paris?
Yeah, I've been increasingly obsessed with Gold Zone and locking in on it during the entire day. Yes, absolutely. It's so wonderful to watch all of these, to watch this kind of funnel of 4 years into a single moment for so many of these athletes, and understanding what's been invested in, or not even understanding, right? We think we understand, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. You have a unique appreciation for this, though, that far exceeds mine, right? Like
Well,
the
yeah.
game.
Yeah, on the Winter side, my very first job out of college was in Plattsburgh, New York, which is about 45 minutes or so from Lake Placid, up in the Adirondacks. And this was late 80s, so it wasn't that far removed from the 1980 Olympics, where Lake Placid, eventually everything moved to Salt Lake. They built newer and better facilities. But at the time, Lake Placid was still kind of the center of the U.S. winter sports world. And I actually began my career every weekend. I'd be in Lake Placid covering whatever World Cup event was coming through town that weekend. And it'd be ski jumping this weekend, biathlon next weekend, luge, bobsled, speed skating. And I will say, and I told Eddy this at spring training, we didn't have short track speed skating. We only had the oval. And it might be and all due respect to the athletes, it was the most boring thing I have ever covered in my life. I mean, the 5,000 meter speed skating event is, they go around once and you're like, all right. And then you find out they're going to go around 35 more times. And you're like, all right, settle in. It's going to be a while. And so whoever came up with short track was a genius, because you got a little roller derby in there and you got a little excitement. But I've spent a lot of time with those athletes back in the 80s, and they're remarkable because the U.S. athletes get very little recognition. The luge guys would go to Germany and Austria and be rock stars. But back here in the States, you get one shot. And, if you finish fourth in your qualifier and miss out on the Olympics, it's basically 4 years or a lifetime of work that you missed out on. I mean, you missed the opportunity. And it's remarkable. It's not, oh, well, let's go get them next year. Right. It's that's it. You may never get them again. It's a remarkable existence for these athletes.
That is an insane amount of pressure to be throwing on these short bursts of competitive windows. But I am curious. Do you think that your consumption of the Pasquatch sandwich is going to position you for 2028?
Yes.
Is there going to be like
Yes.
a competitive eating in the LA games? And if so, do you think you'll be ready for
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, if there is a intestinal distress Olympics, I would be a medalist. I mean, I ate it like an idiot on, and I spoke with my mouth full. I want to apologize. Mike Monaco, I think, was offended that I spoke with my mouth full, but it was going to be an inning before I finished chewing that thing. So we just had to speak up. It's something. I will tell you, it is something. It is. Eddy Alvarez would have to compete in 6 different events to work off the calories that you get from a Pasquich in Kansas City. With that
Gastrointestinal
in mind,
turmoil as a competitive sport, like Harry Francona would be far
yeah,
and away the clubhouse favorite. Like he would
that's
be.
a good point.
He might take the odds off the board. Tito would be the clear odds-on gold medal favorite.
He was born to be the coach of that team. And instead of a gold, you'd be competing. It'd be like a Pepto Bismol pink medal. I think that would be what we'd go for. But we digress slightly. You want to get to it? Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Great stuff this week. Eddy Alvarez, and again, just a quick primer, right? Let's give everybody a quick primer. He is one of 6 athletes to ever walk the face of the earth. And think of all the athletes who have walked the face of the earth. To medal in the Winter and Summer Olympics. Silver in both. Short track speed skating relay, I think the 5,000 in the Sochi Olympics, and then the flag bearer for Team USA and a silver medalist in baseball in the Tokyo Olympics. I mean, truly astonishing what he has accomplished.
Incredible. And the fact he's also been a major leaguer in there as well, like that's also important to point out, that this is someone who who basically had been like on and off baseball as kind of a hobby, and then who was able to say, after he won his silver medal in the Sochi games in 14, okay, I'm going to see if I can advance as a professional baseball player, and did so to the point of the pinnacle of the sport, getting experience across 3 big league seasons. Pretty amazing athlete.
So, Alex, not only is he one of only 6 to medal in both, but do you know the only other athlete to medal in the Olympics and play Major League Baseball?
Jim Thorpe, I would guess.
Jim Thorpe, yes. Can you imagine being the only other person to do something with Jim Thorpe? I mean, if that doesn't speak to the amazing athleticism, I don't know what else does.
Incredible, absolutely mind-boggling, and also like we held up, Jim Thorpe, an iconic figure in American sports history. It is wild. That is wild company to keep.
All right, let's get to it. Let's hear from the man himself. 2-time Olympian, and again, for those of you at home, as someone who worked in Lake Placid, never forget, you are never a former Olympian. You are an Olympian for life. You always refer to Olympic athletes as Olympians. They are Olympians forever. So joining us, our first Olympian on the 310 to Left pod. Well, I guess that's not true. We've had Tristan Casas, so we've had other Olympians. But joining us on the 310 to Left podcast, Eddy Alvarez. And so we welcome in the perfect guest for these last few weeks. Joining us, Eddy Alvarez, Olympian, one of the only people on earth, 6 athletes ever to medal in both the Winter and Summer Games. Eddy, thanks for joining the podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Eddy, I wanted to jump in with this. I had the pleasure of being in Worcester this past weekend at Polar Park. And came over, said hello to you, and you're sitting on the floor of the clubhouse watching the Gold Zone quad box, watching all 4 medal activities at the same time. And so I'm like, okay, like Eddy, he is not indifferent to the Olympics going on, quite obviously. A little bit later, I was interviewing one of your teammates in the hallway, and we actually had to stop the interview because you guys were so loud screaming at the TV set for one of the competitions that we couldn't hear each other from a foot away. And like I was like, what a
Right.
special thing to be able to see Eddy Alvarez, like a multi-time, multi-sport, multi-season Olympic medalist, going bananas over watching the Olympics. How would you describe your passion for the Olympic competitions, and like how much are you how connected do you feel while watching this whole thing?
Oh, I'm a huge Olympic fan. I've been for as long as I can remember. It's something that's always been very um, that my family's been very enthusiastic about growing up. It was always on. It's something that we always look forward to, and I just so happen to be in a sport and grow up in a sport that was the highest pinnacle of reaching that level of that sport was, getting to the Olympics. So, just being able to bring that over to this side and the baseball side and have it be as excited to watch as I am excited to watch it. It's really cool to see.
Eddie, I think I told you at spring training, my first job was in Lake Placid, New York, or right outside of Lake Placid, New York, back in the late 80s when Lake Placid, it hadn't shifted yet west. So, my first job was covering whatever sport was coming into town for the World Cup that weekend, right? It'd be luge this weekend, it'd be ski jumping next weekend, figure skating. We didn't have short track back then yet. But I always marvel at the athletes of those sports because they get their moment in the sun once every 4 years. It's not baseball where you get to go be a professional. They're going to keep competing in luge, and luge is a big deal in Germany and parts of Europe, but not here in the U.S., right? So,
Right.
like, you live that life as a short track speed skater. What is that like? Where you get that opportunity. You went through a lot, the 2 feet and the surgeries, everything you needed to do to get back, but you made that Olympics first, right? You began as the short track speed skater as far as your Olympic career. I just think people have no appreciation for the work that goes in for that one opportunity every 4 years. What is that like to see that through, to become an Olympian, to medal in it, like that entire experience?
Right. Yeah, it's a much different world than the baseball world. Um, I mean, we can dissect it in so many ways. But yeah, like going overseas and competing is a much different experience than competing what was like here in the United States. You go to the Netherlands, you go to Japan, you go to Korea, South Korea. Like it's a whole different world. You're walking around like you're part of a boy band kind of thing. Where here in the United States, back home, no one knows absolutely who I am or what I've done. Being from Miami, Florida, no one watches my speed skating. So, it's a much quieter living situation that I have here in the U.S. and especially back home. Um, and it's cool to watch how the cultures blend together during the Olympics too, right? Because you start seeing all these other athletes that are playing mainstream sports here in the United States, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, hockey, asking about, hey, look at what's handball, what's badminton, what's field hockey, all these sports you don't really get to see on a day-to-day basis, but require just as much sacrifice, require just as much um, will and you name it, just to get that one moment, just like you said, that one opportunity. Because for most of these athletes, um, it's not we'll get them next year. It's we got to wait a whole 4 years to be able to get that opportunity once again. That's the hardest thing that I think Olympic athletes have to go through is having once their event ends or their career ends, it's like we got to wait a lot longer than just, oh, you know what, I'll just wipe this year clean and hit it next year and hopefully get the ball rolling and start off on the right foot. It's more of like, oh man, 4 years is a long way to go. So it's difficult in the sense of um, post Olympic depression stuff. Like it's you see it a lot more in Olympic athletes than you do in the mainstream sports, when it's more of like, oh, okay, my career's gonna end now. Now it's time to figure out what to do with our lives.
It's so fascinating to think about that kind of perspective. Do you think that that's part of the reason why the idea of switching gears and going to baseball was appealing to you? Like, was it like, after 2014 when when you win silver, right? Like, are you like, did you need to find a different purpose, or like how much were you like, okay, no, like how appealing was it to stay in it and say, I'm going to go for golden 18?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I've always told myself that I was going to go to one Olympics and then I was gonna retire from the sport of speed skating. I love speed skating. It's taken me all over the world. It's given me unbelievable experiences. I've made unbelievable connections, friends, and I owe a lot to it because it molded me in my early days as a young man into the man I am today. And um, I owe a lot to speed skating and what I've learned through that. But I always knew that I wanted to go to one Olympics, and I was going to call it. I was going to call it quits. I didn't know that I was going to make it all the way in baseball. To be honest with you, I always knew that I wanted to try. I've always lived my life to have no regrets. So I knew, speaking with my family and my coaches, that I was going to attempt to play baseball. I didn't know how far I was going to make it. I didn't know how far I was going to go. Maybe I would have gone back to speed skating after a couple of years after I had the opportunity of signing professionally in baseball. It was a lot of just a lot of jumping. I don't know how to explain it. I never quite. It's hard for me to explain. I never put something to rest completely. Now that I'm 34, yeah, speed skating is probably out of my window. But I never put it out of, like, I never just said, okay, I'm done. I'm done. So kind of skating was always in my back pocket, and baseball was always in my back pocket, and I wanted to see where life would take me in both of them.
Yeah, well, I'd love to go back on that a little bit. Like, please explain like how a kid from South Florida ends up being being a speed skater on ice
It's not as strange as you think.
yeah.
I promise.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd love to hear that then, and also like and also like the role, like how you did, how you were picking your own pockets as you were talking about baseball and the speed skating upbringings.
Yeah, so I don't know. Have you ever traveled to Miami in the '90s? Were you ever in the on that? Were you in the night? I mean, it's a movie scene, right? You see the life outside at South Beach. You see everyone on rollerblades. A certain type of music genre is playing. I mean, Miami in the '90s was a beautiful time, and I just so happened to grow up in that era. My parents would always take me to South Beach on the weekends to go skate, and uh, it I became good enough to have attention from a skate shop. I was sponsored by a skate shop when I was little. I was like a little skating billboard. With the skate shop all over me, shirts, I mean, you name it. And I just so happened to be stopped by two recreational speed skaters who said, "Oh my God, your son should try speed skating." Obviously, being from Miami, we've never heard of that sport, and my parents were like, "Okay, what is that? All right, we'll try it out." A couple years later, I became national champion, and that's when the whole story begins.
And I don't even know if Alex knows this. I had a conversation with you, Eddie, at Spring Trading, but in the '90s, I did play-by-play for a fledgling league called Roller Hockey International, and there was a
There we go.
belief that roller hockey was going to make hockey a more popular sport in the U.S. And it was the weirdest season because half the league was minor league ice hockey players, and half the league were rollerbladers from Miami. And some teams, like South Florida, right? And I swear, like the first half of the season, the Miami guys were skating circles around these hockey guys because the hockey guys you couldn't stop. There was no hockey stop. There was no, it was a completely different thing. But you're right. It was a culture in the '90s
It was a
that
culture.
was sort of, yeah, it was permeating the entire country.
Yeah, it was a culture, and I wish it was still a culture. But yeah, you don't see it. But it's true. I mean, things evolve, and life changes, and you really just don't see rollerbladers out in Miami anymore. We probably won't get a rollerblader turned ice skater from Miami anymore. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's, I get to hold that proudly. I get to hold my city, or you know represent my city very proudly. Me and another a friend of mine, Jennifer Rodriguez, who also did the same thing. She was a step ahead of me, so I followed in her footsteps. She won, a couple medals in the Olympics, turned from inline speed skater to ice speed skater, and moved to Salt Lake City to train. And I did the same thing as her, so she kind of paved the way for me. But yeah, it's a I don't want to say it's a dying sport, but I just don't see it as much as I used to.
No doubt about it. And take it, and the Olympics themselves, right? I mean, they're so each one is so different. Where it is, you went to Russia, right? I mean, it was, and that was an incredibly dramatic the speed track that year. The short track was just, the crash you had in the semifinal, and waiting to find out how that plays out. Like, I mean, your journey has such crazy ups and downs, right? The surgeries you've had to go through to keep playing your respective sports at different times, but even the Olympics themselves, like that one winter games, the highs and lows you went through. Like, when were you able to put that in perspective? Is there a moment where you just sort of
It's
can put it all in place?
it's there's it, I, the highs have been very high. I feel like I've gone through way more lows, but I think it's normal in life. I think we all do. We all go through these adversities and hurdles we have to leap through, and it's just a game. It's a game of adjusting, right? Oddly enough, I play that exact game right now for a living, which is baseball. But I learned that very young. I've learned to always, kind of go with the flow and adjust and react. I think life is just a bunch of different ways to react, and that's just all I've ever done. And it's given me this beautiful career. It's given me this unbelievable journey to the Olympics in both speed skating and in baseball. To become the flag bearer of the United States, to represent a whole country, and to represent my background, which is a background of immigrants from Cuba. And it's a true American dream story, and I couldn't be any prouder of that.
That is so remarkable on a number of fronts. But you mentioned the flag bearer. Like, when you went back to the Olympics in 2021 as a member of Team USA's baseball team, was when you changed course. You said that you didn't know how far your career was going to advance as a baseball player. How did you approach goal setting, and in terms of just kind of the patience of what the required patience of being a minor leaguer, by that quest to become an Olympian that's measured in years rather than days.
So you're talking about how I got the opportunity to become a baseball Olympian?
Yeah. How meaningful? Yeah, how whether or not that was part of the goal, like whether or not that was at all on your
No,
radar
it
when
was
you.
not on the radar whatsoever. Yeah. When I finished with my Olympic speed skating, I figured, oh, I'm never gonna get to experience the Olympics again. And then I was playing that up and down game with the Miami Marlins, and I just so happened to get DFA'd around the right time, and I got a phone call from Paul Seiler over at USA Baseball, that they were interested in me to be a part of the qualifying team to get Team USA into the Olympics. And I mean, just that alone, I was super excited about. I had no intention, or I didn't know that I was going to get invited to play in the Olympics. But when I did, I mean, it was a shock, but I was so thrilled. I was so excited. I get to put on the red, white, and blue one more time. And um, yeah, I love to say that I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm such a fanatic of the Olympics. I'm a fanatic of Team USA. I mean, you name it, I will do it. If I could switch to another sport to represent the United States, I would. I'd go experience the Olympics again in a heartbeat.
But because nothing is easy, we get COVID, right? I mean, the
Yeah,
COVID
of course.
comes,
Yeah,
the Olympics get stopped, it
right.
gets pushed off. There was that sort of limbo you and all the Olympians were in, like what would happen, right? When will we play? Will we do that? Will I miss the opportunity? What was that
Right.
like?
Well, Tom, I mean, it's not. To be honest, it's funny because if there wasn't COVID, maybe I wouldn't have been invited to go play on Team USA for the Olympics. Unfortunately, there was, and fortunately, I had that opportunity to have that extra year to play the business of baseball and be at the right place at the right time. But yeah, the COVID Olympics, the Tokyo Olympics were very high security COVID protocols. We couldn't really hang out. We couldn't socialize. We were very restricted on what we were allowed to do. We were pretty much just in our Olympic Village room or apartment, and then we would go to the stadium and then the cafeteria weight room. Like we really couldn't hang out as a group, which is what Olympics are. You get to blend in with all these other Olympic athletes and uh, kind of see how everyone functions and socialize and, get to know people from different sports and learn about their sports and their careers. Um, there wasn't a whole lot of that in Tokyo, but I got to experience that at Sochi, and I was just proud to be there representing the United States.
Well, the fact that you were there, again speaks to, that's an extraordinary accomplishment. One of only three people in history to take part in both the Summer and Winter Olympics for the U.S. And I mean, to medal in both of them. When you think about your how you progressed as a baseball player, like what does that say about the elite level of athletes that are taking part in the Olympics? Like the fact that there can be athletes who are so talented that they are capable of being at the pinnacle of sports across multiple arenas.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the Olympics is it's the most incredible. It's so hard for me to describe it, just because it's such the highest level. It's like the highest pinnacle, and such a great honor to be able to walk around saying that you are an Olympian. Because it's difficult. If I go back to my skating days, I was putting in 6 to 10 hours a day of training, 6 days a week, 11 months of the year. It was a grueling, nonstop, minimal pay job just for an opportunity to go and skate around for sometimes 40 seconds because that's all we get. It's really, we don't do it for a paycheck. We do it for glory. We do it for um, just to give our inner child that dreamer, to fulfill that goal that we set for ourselves. It's really it's a beautiful thing, and it's something that I'll never regret going for ever for the rest of my life.
But you know what I love, Eddie, is what you really exemplify is that you're an athlete first, right? You took to rollerblading and speed skating, then you took to baseball, and I think I've got a couple of adult sons now, but they played sports as kids. You've got a couple of kids. Alex has kids, and everybody whose kids play sports, they want you like at 8 years old to pick a sport, specialize to a
Yeah,
sport, and follow the showcase circuit now for the next 10 years and try to become a major league player, right? You guys,
especially in the
like
baseball
Mike
world.
Boyle, who especially in baseball. Mike Boyle, who did some work with the Red Sox, worked with all the hockey players around the Northeast for a long time, strength and conditioning guy. When they won in 2013, he was part of the staff, and he said, look around that clubhouse. These guys are athletes who chose baseball. They're not necessarily baseball players at birth, and I think you speak to that, don't you? I mean, how important is it to just play whatever you get an opportunity to
I,
play?
I think it's some of the most important things you can do as a developing child. I did all sorts of sports growing up, from gymnastics to karate to baseball, skating, basketball, swimming, you name it, I was doing. And I think I owe that to my mother. She wanted to keep me out of trouble. She did. She I would come home and I'd go to bed. Is what it is. I would do homework in between my sessions of all sorts of sports, and but yeah, skating and baseball did take priority at a relatively young age. But again, like I was never steered away from if I wanted to go play basketball. I was allowed to go play basketball. If I wanted to go play any other sport, I was allowed to go play any other sport except for hockey, which I'm disappointed in my mother for not letting me play hockey, because if you get speed skating and you get baseball, you put them together, it's freaking hockey, all right? So my life would have probably been a lot easier if I was just, I'm not a biggest guy, but I could have been like a quick, like I could put on a few pounds too.
Hockey's
But
back
yeah, I
in
think
2 years. Hockey's back in the Olympics in 2 years, Eddie. The dreams that you could go
yeah,
three.
Tom, my window closed, man. I can't. That's it. Unfortunately, I don't think I have enough time to develop in the farm system of a hockey beer league. Maybe we'll start on a Sunday beer league in Miami
There you go.
where
Yeah.
there's not that many skaters, and then I'll work from there. But yeah, I'm pushing 40 over here. Come on now.
Yeah, well,
No, I
maybe
can't
maybe
even say that. 35, man.
yeah, you're
34.
still young. You're still young. You've got time to get ready
Still
for,
young.
you're on every 7 years, so 2028 in LA. We'll figure out a sport for you.
I don't know. Maybe I'll be a coach or something.
Well, I do. So on the baseball front, though, like the fact that you did pursue this dream in this Olympic dream over the course of years, how much has that helped the way that you've approached your minor league career and allowing yourself? Because I think that one of the most difficult parts about being a minor league player, and you've obviously been a big leaguer as well in multiple seasons, but you had to work for that for many years, right? Like you spent several
Right.
years grinding in the minors before you got there. How much how much did that Olympic journey help you with the patience necessary to continue developing and waiting for that big league opportunity?
It's built resilience. It's built patience and trusting in the process. I honestly, you stood next to me. Well, you saw me sitting down, but either way, you saw me in person, and I'm not like somebody that catches someone's eye when I walk into a room. I'm not a physical specimen, but I've always been resilient, and I was always willing to prove the naysayers wrong. Uh, you name it. I've heard I'm too short, I'm too little, and I don't have enough pop. I heard it in skating too. I don't think he's going to develop well. He's not. You name it. But when you set yourself a goal that's 4, 8, 12, 16 years away, sometimes that's the Olympic cycle. They come in fours, and the quads they're long and they're grueling, and that's something I was able to bring over to the baseball world. Just to have patience and understand that the business side of baseball is out of my control. So control the controllables has always been something that I've mastered very young, because I came from a sport that's very unpredictable. Speed skating, when you're going 40 miles an hour racing against other guys, it's a sport that's unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. It's not always the best guy that wins. Bringing that over to the baseball world and understanding already what it takes to reach one of the highest levels in sport. It was a deadly combination. It was almost like I had a cheat sheet.
You posted a picture on Instagram the other day. It's a remarkable picture. Ashley Green, who does photography for WooSox, took a great
Yeah.
shot of four WooSox players who all were Olympians in Tokyo. You and Koss, Brooke, and Colesbury.
Should have been
Amazing
five.
that the
Should have
four of
been
you together.
five. Let's get this right. There should have been five, but the Red Sox were selfish. They were selfish, and they took Jaron Duran away from them. All right,
See,
and I have a bone to pick with whoever made that decision. But you can continue with the questions.
it has worked out fairly well for Darren, just to be clear. I mean, it's
Well, yeah, whatever.
Might have
He's
gotten
doing
gold.
pretty good
Might
this
have gotten
year.
gold in 21. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's going pretty
whatever.
good.
All-star MVP. I mean, yeah, he's a superstar now. Whatever. I'll still send him a text saying that I hate him.
I'll follow up on that here in Kansas City tonight. We'll get a follow up on that.
Please tell him,
But
and tell him that I said he's ugly too.
you hate him and he's ugly. There you go. I got the lead for the broadcast tonight. But for a lot of us, that was sort of the coming out party for Tristan Casas, right? Watching what he did in those Tokyo games, right, and hearing about that. Take us into that a little bit, because we see him now, but you saw him really sort of coming together and getting the attention and having the success. What was that like, and what's he like? You know him better than any of us. What is Tristan Casas like?
Come on now, Tristan Casas is Tristan Casas. Yeah, I mean he's a unique creature. He is. It's Tristan Casas' world that we're all living in. We just heard it in the bus ride yesterday. And you know what? I'm here for it. Give me some popcorn. I friggin' love it. But when I first met him, I didn't know it, right? So I took a step back to try and absorb and process who Tristan Casas is as a human being. He's unique. He's unique, and but I will say he's one of the most dedicated people I've ever been around. Whether it be his training regimen, his diet regimen, his quirky routines, whatever it may be, it is his dedication is something that has impressed me from day one, because we were locker mates in Cary, which is where our Team USA team met up for a little bit prior. Sorry, not Cary, Vero Beach. We met up before our qualifiers in Port St. Lucie, and he was my locker mate. And I mean, he had all his protein powders, his recovery powders, his vitamins all lined up. He had all his weird tools for his feet, ankles, knees, hips, all the way up his body, all perfectly neat in his locker. And I'm sitting there, and I got my underwear thrown on the floor, and I got a glove that's warped into another shoe. It's just we're just completely different human beings. I'm just there. I'm happy, and he's just locked in. He's got his headphones in. I mean, we're all trying to meet each other, and Tristan's had headphones in, and he's just staring into his locker. And so I meet him, and he was so enthusiastic about being there. He wanted to learn from all the veteran guys around him, and you can tell that this kid was going to be something special. Even though he had his own way of doing things, you can just tell that he was going to be what is most likely the face of the organization right now. Jaron Duran is having an unbelievable year. Don't get me wrong, but this is a guy that I would love to build an organization around, and he's what he's done is been incredible. And to see what he did in the Olympics, I had the best seat in the house. So sometimes I was on base, sometimes I was in the dugout, but it was just incredible to watch at such a young age too. I hope I broke
Eddy,
it down enough for you.
I mean, it's incredible.
That's the greatest breakdown ever.
Sorry, excuse my language.
That's a podcast.
Yeah, and I think that we all you're not the first one to think about Tristan and end up dropping a 4-letter word in a most way. You have the Olympic tattoo.
Tristan being Tristan. Yeah.
Tristan, where in his world? You have the Olympic tattoo, right? You have the Olympic tattoo on your
I
wrist?
I do. I have a long sleeve shirt on today, so, and then I have some people around me in this hotel room, so I can't take my shirt off. But I will say, I have rings here. If I could stretch my shirt.
There it is.
There it is.
Kind of see it. Yeah.
When do you get those? Do you get them after competing in the games, after you qualify? Did you get them as a goal-setting thing? When is that such a fundamental part of your identity that you are
I've never been confident enough to ever get something of this magnitude prior to getting to the Olympics and competing and seeing what happens. I'll never ever. I don't have the. I don't have the guts for that ever. So this was definitely after I got after the Olympics, and I came home, and it was the one thing that I had to ask my mother for permission, and she was okay with that. But she told me that she would probably disown me if I ever got a tattoo. But the fact that she was willing to accept the one and only tattoo that I have to be the Olympic rings, it must be meaningful. And I've always said I've never wanted to put any ink on my body unless it was meaningful.
I want to ask you finally, Eddie, as we let you get going, but you're a dad now. The kids are getting a little bit older, starting to be aware, and I always love talking to athletes who keep going a couple more years because if nothing else, they now get to share it with children, right? Where they're becoming aware
That's it.
of what my dad
That's it.
does is pretty cool, right?
That's it. Like, I'm having a relatively decent year. I'm still in the hunt. I'm still in the fire. Like, if I am an injury, a phone call away. I don't want any of that. Don't get me wrong, but my God, it's been so cool to see my oldest son, who's turning 4 in a couple weeks here, like how he's been absorbing everything that I'm going through right now. I love to see his face. He knows that daddy goes to work and plays baseball. He asks me every morning when we wake up, he says, "Daddy, can I go to work and baseball with you?" I mean, it's so cool to share that with him. And it's something that motivates me to keep going. If the wife doesn't kill me by next year, maybe I'll keep going. But we're gonna find out soon because the season's just around the corner to end, and I got a lot of daddy duties to do in the off season,
Yeah.
and then once she calms down and doesn't want to rip my head off because I'm away from her for so long, maybe I'll ask her if it's okay if I can put on a uniform one more time.
It's amazing. It's
Well,
fantastic. It is such a great story.
I
And
will
by the way,
say,
one
like
thing I do want
you
to add,
continue this. Go ahead, Tom.
Say
the
it
only thing
again.
I wanted to say is that, to be clear, Tristan Casas would have gotten up and taken his shirt off in the lobby of the hotel to show us the tattoo. All right, I
Oh,
just
I
that
know that, but I'm not as body confident as he is. So you know, yeah, I have my 6 pack. Yeah, I look, I got a pretty good tan, but I mean, you've seen his yoga poses out in right field.
Oh
He's
yes, I
got a hoodie
have
on every
on a daily
day. I
basis.
just can't.
Yeah,
I don't have it in me.
yeah. It's great stuff. Thank you for doing this. It was really fun.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, guys, and I look forward to one day doing it again.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. What an extraordinary job you do of sharing the Olympic experience with all of us. So thanks for that, Eddie, and really appreciate it and look forward to that next time.
Absolutely, thanks.
All right, Eddy Alvarez, we appreciate the time. He's the guest on the 310 to Left podcast. We'll see you again next time.